Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Bob Brooks, host of the Prudent Money Radio Show. Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit about a very serious problem that we're facing as a group of consumers, or a country of consumers, and for a lot of people listening individually, and that is credit card debt. And today and tomorrow, I'm going to take the opportunity to really take a deep dive into what makes sense, what you want to be cautious about. But the time to take action against debt there's no better time than the present. And if you're not taking care of it in the present or making positive steps towards doing so, then you're probably just going through paying the minimum payment and maybe ignoring it a little bit. And as long as you get that payment in, you're in good shape. Life is so much more than a life of minimum payments. It's time to get rid of the debt once and for all. The problem is you're getting a lot of bad advice, which is kind of the situation today as well with pop culture finance, telling you that you can just go to a debt settlement company and make that all go away. Well, it's not quite that easy. In fact, you can make things a lot worse by going into a debt settlement company. So we're going to cover that aspect of it tomorrow. What are some real ways, and what's the stewardship answer today? If you got a question for me, go to prudentmoney.com, send it to info@prudentmoney.com, and I am available as a financial advisor and can help you with anything that you need for me to look at. So that's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. Enjoy the program. Well, what do you need to know about getting out of debt? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon and welcome to the Prudent Money Radio Show. I'm your host, Bob Brooks. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, if you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. At the top of the page, you'll see a link. It says Ask Prudent Money. Go ahead and click through that link and send in your question, and I will definitely get you taken care of. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. Today, I want to talk a little bit about a problem that I see only getting worse and worse, and that is debt. Personal debt, credit card debt, personal loans, maybe car loans, anything that falls in that category, except we're not going to talk about mortgages and that type of thing today, but we are going to talk about really mainly this credit card debts and personal loan debt. And credit card debt today is over $1 trillion. That's a million millions. Yeah, get your head wrapped around that. That's quite a bit of money. And over $1 trillion. The problem, there's two problems really. The first problem is that anybody that has a problem with debt and has gotten to a point where they're in over their head is probably ignoring it and just paying the minimum due and going about their business and can just hoping they get from paycheck to paycheck. Second problem is that credit card companies will still loan money to you. And, you know, you get to a point where you compare loan sharks to credit card companies and you don't see a whole lot of difference. Some of the interest rates we've talked about on this program are unbelievable. But going back to the first reason that really concerns me is that people don't know what actions to take. They don't know what to do. And so it's very paralyzing. If you're in that situation, you would know it's very, very paralyzing. And I've been doing the radio and a lot of the consumer type reporting since 2002. And I never thought we would see a day that we would be paying some of these outrageous interest rates on credit card debt and the personal loan debt. So the bad news is that you've got a debt problem. The good news is that you can go borrow more money The bad news is you're going to pay 35% on that money, more than likely. So the way that you end up being successful and getting a jump start, getting going on this, is to where you stop using credit. Cut yourself off. Don't cut the cards up, but put the cards, or most of them except for one for emergencies that you carry with you. Take those cards, wrap them up in a Band-Aid, a strap or something, and rubber bands, the word I was looking for, and put it in a drawer and do not touch them. You've got to stop the bleeding at some point. So what I want to do today is add a little bit of commentary to what you're hearing and what people are talking about on radio ads, TV ads, and get some perspective into this situation of debt management. I would love to see more and more people come to a point where they get completely out of debt, and they've got a testimony to give, because this is, and we'll talk about this more towards the end of the program, this is about a stewardship journey with God. And we've created the mess. We've created the emotional situation that goes along with the mess called debt. And now we got to get out of it. And there's some, if you think of it and you filter everything through this journey with God by your side, and that you're going to, it's a stewardship journey, and you're all in, it can be one of the greatest things and one of the biggest relationship builders with Christ that you've ever experienced. And but more on that when we get towards the end of this, because I think I want to be able to park on that for a second. So let's talk a little bit about personal loans and where they fit into the solution for debt. There's this industry of personal loans has become quite a big industry. And it's just like it sounds. It's a loan that you can take out, and you got to tell them what you're taking it out for up front, but you could combine and consolidate several different loan credit card debts and that kind of thing that you have out there, and put it all on one platform with one payment. Now, let me say this, that consolidating a bunch of debt where you manage multiple debts, and you're probably at a point now where you're just kind of stressed out, you're done with it, you're so tired of making sure that 8 or 10 credit cards are being paid each month, the minimum payment's getting paid. You don't dare put it on auto draft because you don't want to end up having a problem. And if you notice, there's a reason why credit card companies push for you as a consumer to get on to auto drafts, because they have a little bit more control of the situation. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But personal loans, here's the pros and the cons. The pros is that a closed-end loan where you have a beginning date and an end date, all you have to do is make the payments and you're done, is so much better for your credit score than an open-ended credit card debt. So there's one big pro, that if you can open up 4 or 5 different credit card debts and move the debt over to one and consolidate it, that will be good for your credit score. The downside is, we're looking at 30, 35% interest rates. And that would be the absolute last thing I would do, is 30 to 35% interest rates. And I think it's also important to understand what the word consolidate means. I've come across many people who've talked about their debt situation, and they want to consolidate their loans, want to make it easier. The only reason you do a consolidation loan is if at the end of the day, by doing so, you have reduced your interest rate. Because as we will talk about it, the interest rate's the problem more times than not. And if you had the minimum payment, which is giving you much, not giving you much help towards eliminating the debt, you're just paying a lot of interest. It's you want to get that cost of debt down. So if I had an opportunity to put my money into roll 4 or 5 credit card debts into one with a personal loan, but yet the personal loan you're paying 2 or 3% higher, then I would probably stick where I am, because in a lot of reasons, and we'll talk about this as well, is a lot of times you're leaving credit card debt that actually has better terms and conditions than the personal loan that you're going to. So just kind of keep that in mind. Personal loans, they work and they can work, but you've got to have pretty good credit score on the other end, and they're looking at what makes up that credit score pretty closely. And so I would, that's, for some people it's an option. For most people it's really not an option. Number 2, probably the most popular one, is the 0% interest rate card. And if you go to many of the financial sites, you'll see tons of these advertised. So 0% up front, and this one's advertised balance transfer card, says perhaps the most cost-effective consolidation tool for credit card debt. After you apply for the type of card, you can move balances from your existing card for a small fee. With this card, you won't accumulate interest up to 2 years. Now, that sounds very, very appealing, to be in a situation where you don't have any interest rate costs for 2 years, 0%, and you can just imagine all that money goes towards the 0% interest. Now, this is a tricky situation, because you can't make a blanket statement and say nobody should do these, everybody should do these. It's really it comes down to some people this is a great option. For others, it's not such a great option. It's not such a great option if you're moving debt from a credit card to a 0% APR for 2 years. That's all good and well and good that you have the 2 years, but the chances are your interest rate will be higher on the back end of that when they shift to an interest rate. Then of course you have 0% and the credit card that you left. So once again, it runs into those situations where maybe you have 18 or 19% on your credit card, and you're looking at moving it to 0% after 2 years. It changes to 22%. I wouldn't do that. I say I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that unless you had a game plan to move all this debt over to this credit card, and you were going to aggressively pay it down, and you were going to get paid down, and by the time the interest free runs out, you pay it off or something like that. But remember, none of these cards are free, because they're charging you 3 to 5% in charges to move that balance transfer. So I think that's one of the most misrepresented situations with credit cards, is that nothing is free. So keep that in mind. But the biggest problem that you run into is the terms and conditions on your current credit card are more than likely better than what you're moving it to. And so you want to just be careful with that. Now, let's talk about the Consumer Credit Card Customer Agreement and Disclosure Statement. This, my friends, is the fine print. And you want to know this fine print very well, because one of the reasons that and I document this in my book, Deceptive Money, one of the things that the credit card companies, they just count on you doing is making mistakes. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Because if you make a mistake, guess what comes back onto the card? That 20 to 22, 24% interest rate. And if you make a mistake, chances are you could have ended up lowering your credit score, maybe, depending on what kind of mistake that you made. But they're going to take every opportunity to lower your situation and increase those interest rates as quickly as possible. It says, can we limit your account use? Now, so I'm going to go through some of not so many pros. I'm going to go back through the cons of using a credit card, zero interest rate card. Can we limit your account use? Yes, you may limit or close your account. If we do so, the terms of this agreement will apply until you pay your account in full. So remember this, is that credit cards are probably the most abusive, worst credit contract or consumer contracts that a consumer can sign. You're basically signing over your options to a credit card company and trust that they'll do right by you. But yet they can close things, they can change things. And used to, they would have, and still today I see some in these credit customer agreements and disclosure statements, but they'll say, we can close your account, or we can increase your interest rate for any reason at any time. Now, can you imagine signing up for a contract that says they can do that and putting $20,000, $30,000 on the line? People do it every day. Basically, what they're wanting to do is what can cause your account to go into default? Because if you go into default, then you've really messed the situation up. Your account is in default if any of the following happens. You do not make a minimum payment by the payment due date. Probably the easiest one to mess up. You don't make your payment on time. Your payment returns to the bank unpaid. You do not honor this agreement's terms. Your application includes a false statement. You file for bankruptcy. If any of these scenarios, we will require you to immediately pay your account total. We also may not allow future transactions as your account, on your account. Close your account. Close your other accounts that you have with the same bank. They can go and they can do a soft credit pool, which means that a soft credit pool and a hard credit pool. A hard credit pool is you get deductions off of your credit score. A soft credit pool just simply means that they do it and it doesn't cost you any points on your credit score. They can go check out what you're doing if you're late with other companies, or how much debt that you have, and they can determine that you are a higher risk, and they can raise your rates. So the worst thing that you could do is default on their account. Now, I doubt that these companies, that most credit card companies, if you are late with your minimum payment, that they're going to consider your account in default the first time. But if you're perpetually late, Yeah, they could definitely do it, and you have real problems on your hands. Paying our costs when your account is in default. You agreed to pay collection costs, attorney's fees, and court costs that we have as a result of enforcing our rights under this agreement. So, can you imagine with me for a second that you're signing? In fact, this would be such a great drill for every kid, every teenager to listen to this. Imagine signing your life away to a credit card. Just sign your name on it, the application, and you agree that the credit card company can take any steps they want to against you. They can change anything. They can shut your account down. And if they incur any legal fees, you get to pay it. Yeah, it's a great motivation to go get a credit card. I wish more than anything that I would have had some teaching and somebody pour some wisdom into me when it came to credit cards, because I think I've made every mistake in the book except for a default. But that was one thing back in 1992 when I took over the program. And back then we did a lot of Q&A on it was more of a call-in show than a commentary show. And it was a situation where someone would say, this happened to me, what do I do? And I would come back and say, well, maybe I knew. I would let myself off the hook and go research it and talk about it the next night. You can imagine the amount of stuff you need to have that you need to understand and know in your head doing a radio show is quite a bit. But between that and all my current bad experiences with credit cards, I really learned what you do and what you don't do. That's what caused me to write the book Deceptive Money. And it's this is just something you want to drill into into the heads of your kids, because so many mistakes are made. Can we deny transactions on the credit card? Yes. We may decline any transaction at any time for any reason, and they go through the different reasons. Can we verify your credit information more than once? Yes. That's when they go back and check your other credit cards and see how you're doing. And they're looking for. It's really interesting because what they call a good credit score still gets a horribly high interest rate. So that's what you're dealing with on the 0% type of cards. Now, there's a couple of ways. Let's say that you take the advice, get everything organized, and now you're looking for a way to pay off the credit cards. There is two different methods that you would take. One's the avalanche method, and number two is the snowball method. Not really sure who came up with this, but I think it does a good job of explaining. The avalanche method would have you pay off the highest interest rate of debt first. So you're always focusing on pay down the highest. It's all about the interest rate. The avalanche method is all about the balance. They're not so much concerned with the higher interest rate. They're concerned with the balance. Now, I used to tell people that the numbers don't lie. It's very black and white. You're going to get out of debt sooner if you pay off the highest interest rate. And the numbers will reflect that to be true. And then I also I think there is some wisdom behind the situation of paying off a debt, even though it's a lower interest rate debt, or it didn't really even matter. And just the achievement of paying off a debt can be the motivation that you need to go pay off the next debt. So I think that there is some wisdom in that. I've kind of changed my mind since that. I can't remember what I wrote in my book. I think I wrote that to do the avalanche without question. But I think that there are situations where we need to have a little bit of good momentum. Now, obviously, I'm not gonna be able to cover all the rest of this. So what we will do is cover tomorrow and talk about the real ways to get out of debt. So make sure that you join me tomorrow. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.